So, hey guys, listen, we're all trying to get more productive. And the question is, how do you find a way to get an edge? I'm a big believer that if you're getting mentoring or you're in an environment that causes growth, a growth-based environment, that you're much more likely to grow and you're going to grow faster. And that's why I love Growth Day. Growth Day is an app that my friend Brendan Burchard has created that I'm a big fan of. Write this down, growthday.com/ed. So if you want to be more productive, by the way, he's asked me, I post videos in there every single Monday that get your day off to the right start. He's got about $5,000, $10,000 worth of courses that are in there that come with the app. Also, some of the top influencers in the world are all posting content in there on a regular basis, like having the Avengers of personal development and business in one app. And I'm honored that he asked me to be a part of it as well and contribute on a weekly basis, and I do. So go over there and get signed up. You're going to get a free, tuition-free voucher to go to an event with Brendan and myself and a bunch of other influencers as well. So you get a free event out of it also. So go to growthday.com/ed. That's growthday.com/ed.
There's a big learning curve when 18-year-olds go to college and they're off on their own and they need to be held accountable, but they also need some understanding and some love.
You are super social and you'd rather talk than work. You know what I'm saying? I just had to grow up one day and just be real with myself and just say, the only way you're gonna be successful is you gotta discipline yourself.
So greatness takes sacrifice. You have to sacrifice something if you want balance. The easy way is to follow the lead. People easily follow the lead of the person who has no discipline and has no balance because that's easier.
Why was Michael and Kobe who they were? Tom Brady, Dwayne Wade, Wayne Gretzky, Muhammad Ali. It's up in here.
So let's take a look at how do we expand our capacity? How do we increase our self-discipline? For me, and what I would recommend for you, is that it starts out by taking an honest look, an audit at the things that take away from our self-disciplines. What are the things that rob you, that steal you from your disciplines? So in my case, for example, I'll give you some things that rob me of my disciplines, that take my focus away, take my attention away, that make it more easy to do than the things I need to do. For me, some of it's television. And in my own case, it is that. Like, I really do enjoy Netflix. I'll get captivated. When I wake up in the morning, one of the things I used to do is I would do a little bit of a morning routine, but then I'd find myself flipping Sports Center on. A lot of the guys can probably relate to that. Or you flip on one of the morning TV shows. And all of a sudden, I've lost 30, 40 minutes into this abyss of things that really don't matter at that time. It's funny, my wife would say, haven't you already watched these highlights last night? You're watching the same exact highlights again the next morning. And I'm like, she's totally right. So for me, it's been sports, it's been Netflix, it's been watching sports on television. This robs me of my self-disciplines. Another thing for me is worry. Believe it or not, the emotion of worry or the emotion of fear steals my self-discipline because I'm captivated in a problem that really hasn't even existed yet, probably won't exist, but I've given my attention and my energy off the task at hand. See, there's this fallacy. I've had people on my show that have taught this, that you can multitask. The truth is there's really no such thing as multitasking. Your brain can only hold one process and one thought at one time. And so this idea that you can do three things at once, like I'll have the TV on in the background, but I'm going to write an effective chapter of my book. That is not true. That TV on in the background steals some of your self-discipline from you. For you, some of you, it might be that it's a worry addiction. It might be or addiction to a relationship. But these are the things. You have to make a list of the things. For me, in a given day, what takes my self-discipline from me is worry, fear, and the process of watching screens, scrolling through Instagram, scrolling through TikTok, watching YouTube, watching sports on television. So I've made lists of things that are my self-discipline stealers. And I haven't eliminated them, but I've reduced them and I schedule them in non-productive times. So it's not that I can't watch Sports Center. It's not that I can't scroll TikTok or Instagram. I can do that, but I have to schedule it in times that don't take away from moving the needle. You've got to do moving the needle activities in your life. The most successful people do the highest impact things possible in any given moment or any given day. And the people that lose or that produce subpar results or average results, they still work very hard, but they don't do the needle moving things. So in my fitness, for example, one of the needle moving things is drinking water. That's a self-discipline that is required of me to stay in my peak physical state in every given day. And I'm going to show you in a minute how I make sure I do that. And then I eliminate and I make a list of the things that take that away from me. One of the other things is I have to do breath work. I have to control my breathing. I love yoga now. I'm doing a lot of yoga. And I had to, what is it that eliminates that for me? One, it's getting up too late. Two, it's turning on that television and watching sports. So I've made lists of the things that rob me of my disciplines. The second thing in self-discipline is this: show me your schedule, show me your day timer, and I will show you your life. If you show me your schedule today and what you do consistently in a given day, what you have scheduled, because what you schedule is a priority. Okay. So if you show me your schedule, I will show you your life a year to 3 years from now based on today's schedule. So second thing in self-discipline is scheduling the things that matter, literally putting them in and having a time for them scheduled on a regular basis. This may seem trivial, but it's not, because there are things I need self-discipline for me. One of the areas is like my personal friendships and relationships, even with my own family. And so for me, if I'm not careful, I won't have the self-discipline to make sure those aren't just maintained, but that they're growing and evolving in a way that's beautiful, that those people deserve in my life. And although this may sound orchestrated, I schedule those things that schedule makes me look like I've got self-discipline. Okay. But truthfully, it's just scheduled. So I have things in my calendar that says, text Bella, call Max, call mom. I have scheduled these things in my calendar. When I'm in my schedule, I will do the things that are in there. So a lot of times we just schedule our appointments, don't we? We just have appointments. And that's all we have in a calendar. At the end of the day, I didn't make my contacts. I didn't tell the people that I love them. I didn't do the amount of emails I was supposed to do. I didn't take the time to write the chapter of my book. I didn't craft my social media captions. Things need to be scheduled. That's where self-discipline comes from. And then the third thing is I've built the habit of keeping the promises that I make to myself. The process of self-discipline is like a muscle that you can grow. And so I think the mistake many people make is they start with these huge things that they think require self-discipline. And unless they do these huge things, they lack it. Whereas I believe you start in the micro, you start small in life, and that's what builds a real discipline. So this may sound crazy, but I have eliminated and written down the things that take my self-discipline away. I have scheduled the things that make me look like I have self-discipline. And then third, I start with the small promises I can keep to myself. And that's to this day, 25 years later on this journey, 35 years later on this journey, I still schedule things. I still do little things that create momentum, because momentum, as I've said before, is a magnifier. Momentum can make an average, ordinary person like me produce superhuman results. So I create what might be considered artificial momentum every single day. So let me give you an example of that. I make my bed every single day. I've been doing that for many, many years. That seems insignificant, right? Because I could pay somebody to make my bed every single day. That's not why I do it. I do it because it starts my day with discipline, and it's something that I can control and I can maintain. I have a routine that I do, whatever your routine might be. For me, it could be the cold plunge or my prayer time or my meditation time, my stretching, my scripture reading. I do these things early in my day. These are promises that I can make to myself that create this identity of a self-disciplined person, when the truth is I am not one. I have not been one, but I have created an identity of a self-disciplined person. Let me give you another one. I lay my clothes out the night before for the following day. I do this whether I'm staying in a hotel room or whether I'm staying at my own house. I know that sounds insignificant. It is extremely significant, because now I've done something that I told myself I was going to do, and it's done. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm in autopilot mode. So these small things, the third thing I do, I have a big a gallon of water that I pour the night before. And when I get up, I drink half of that water. It doesn't matter if you drink 10% of it, but it's something to start my day. Whoop, self-discipline. I've done it. When I point my mind as a weapon at the small things in my life, and I start stacking those up that I do over and over and over again, now the medium-sized tasks are disciplined and the big ones are disciplined. And so I'm going to tell you that I don't think anyone has natural discipline. They build structures around them. They build systems around them. They schedule them, and they eliminate the things that take from it. And over time, they build this identity where they seem like they're incredibly disciplined people. Remember this for a second. Your brain is always trying to conserve energy. It's always trying to conserve energy. It's trying to build a habit. It is trying to do this so that it doesn't have to work to think. And so the more you do these little things, your brain wants to continue to do them. It's not just a muscle, it's how the brain functions, because now that it's just stuff that you do every single day, it doesn't have to think about it anymore. And under pressure in life, we act reflexively. Under pressure, we act reflexively. So if your reflex is to have these habits that serve you, your life becomes very easy. It also frees your brain up to be much more creative and innovative and energized and aware than people who don't have discipline. See, the benefit of discipline and self-discipline is not just that you get these things done. It's that your brain's not having to work so darn hard. See, when you don't have self-discipline, when you don't have things you do early in your day, when you don't keep promises to yourself, when you don't schedule the things, right? When you don't do those things, when you don't eliminate the things that rob you of your self-discipline, not only you're not getting stuff done, you're more tired. You're more physically exhausted. Here's the fallacy. People think self-discipline, people that get up, that work out, that do their stuff, that make their calls, that have these relationships, that are sending out a bunch of emails, that are making a bunch of contacts, they're tired. That's not the case, because after a while, this is automatic. Their brain's not having to think about it. It's just what they do. It's their routine. Your brain, on the other hand, if you're not disciplined, isn't nearly as organized. So it's having to work to think through, to get back up, to start over, to restart, to get going again. It's constantly having to work. And what you're doing is you're depleting yourself of the energies that could have gone towards creativity, focus, awareness, and intentional activities. Does that make sense? So actually, undisciplined people are more tired at the end of a day than disciplined people. And that's what I found. They say, you're 52, you're working harder than you've ever worked in your dadgum life. Why? Because I have built all these structures around me and eliminated most of the things that take my focus and discipline away, so that I am wired, man, with a ton of energy to create and innovate and think and be present in the moment, because I have self-discipline. And self-discipline is a process, is a habit. It is not something someone's born with, and it's not very complicated. What has to happen, though, is you got to do it for a while. But now the idea of not working out in a given day makes me sick to my stomach. I can't even imagine not working out. But way back in the day, I had to schedule it. I had to eliminate the sports center. I had to have the glass of water next to me. I had to have my workout clothes laid out the night before. I had to make my bed. Then I had to do you follow what I'm saying? These things make the discipline part look much harder than it is. It's actually autopilot for me now. I don't have to think about it. So there's all these benefits to having self-discipline. And I want to share with you like almost my manifesto for self-discipline. And it's quite old. So if you're watching this, you'll see this magazine. And if you're not, I'm going to give you a gift. You're hear it on the audio anyway. But here we go. This is from Newsweek magazine a little while ago, June 18th, 2001. So at the time that we're recording this, and by the way, stay focused in growth day all the time. This is one of the best things you can do, is be in an environment that's conducive to self-discipline, that fosters it. That's what we're doing here, right? This right here, what we're doing, this place you're doing this at, creates self-discipline, because the environment is constantly feeding you things that create the habits and rituals that make your life easier. But here we go. June 18th, 2001, Newsweek cover, Tiger Rules. I have carried this magazine, 2 of them. I have 2 copies of them, with me everywhere I have gone on business trips for 22 going on 23 years. I have read what I'm going to share with you thousands of times, because it's about discipline, self-discipline, and the mindset that comes with being self-disciplined. Tiger Rules. This was the prime of Tiger Woods' career, one of the most disciplined people of all time. Now, when I say discipline in his sports life, anybody who knows anything about sports knows the sports part of his life. In his prime, there was no more disciplined athlete in the history of sports. Would you agree with me on that? In his prime, in his sports life, there's never been an athlete more disciplined than Tiger Woods. And I wanted to be what he did in golf. I wanted to do in the business part of my life. And so there was this article, and I've carried it now for almost 23 years. Okay. Here's what it's called. The Dominator. The Dominator. And it's 5 rules for Tiger Woods' domination and self-discipline. Would you like to know what they are? Because this article, the dude who read this article 22, 23 years ago, didn't have the mindset of self-discipline. I had the desire for self-discipline. I had some of the habits, but I didn't want to just do well in business, do well in life. I wanted to dominate. How many of you would like to dominate? I mean, go from average, ordinary, not just to winning, but dominance. Dominate in your life, whatever that area is. Dominate in the love parts of your life. Dominate in your emotions. Dominate in business. Dominate in the financial part of your life. Maybe dominate your former self, but be dominant in your life. At the end of this life, man, I was dominant, right? I wanted to do that. And I don't think that that's a male or female thing. I'm talking about being great, becoming a GOAT, doing something awesome. And here's what happens 22, 23 years later. Stay with me on this. It's so awesome. The guy that started 22, 23 years ago is totally unrecognizable to me, to the man that I am today. Would you like in 22 or 23 years, 25 years from now, to look back and go, I don't even recognize that person. It's the same integrity. It's the same character. It's the same loving being. But I've become something so dominant. I've become almost like a machine. People look at me. You heard audios I've done in the past where I say there's unaware people. That's one type of person. You don't want to be them. There's motivational people who can motivate you. They play on your motives. If you do this, you'll get a Lamborghini. If you do this, you'll get a house. If you do this, you'll get a relationship. They play on your motives, which is it's a good thing. A lot of motivational speakers out there, motivational friends of yours. The third level is inspirational. Inspirational people take it to a different place. They can motivate you. They make you become aware, but they speak to your spirit. The root of inspirational is to be in spirit. These people are special. These people, you feel something when you're with them and you're around them or you hear them communicate. And then even from there's another level. That fourth level is aspirational. Aspirational is not only did you motivate, you made me aware, you motivated me, I'm inspired, but I want to be more like you. I want to be more like you. To me, in the sports world, Tiger Woods was not only motivational, and he was incredibly motivational. He was inspiring. You would feel things when he would win, but he was aspirational. I'd like to be more like him in my business life. I'd like to be more like him. I want to be a dominator. So I aspired to be a dominator, and I know you do too. You want to know what the 5 rules are? I'm going to give them to you. These are the mindsets, not just the behaviors. These are the mindsets of a self-disciplined person. So here we go. Here's what he says. Here's the article, by the way. You believe I still carry this thing? Here we go. Number 1, genius is 99% perspiration. Perspiration. I had to hear that. I had to have someone give me permission to work really, really hard. Now, what they do in this article, by the way, is they interviewed other dominators. So they interviewed Martina Navratilova, the great tennis player. They interviewed Joe Montana, the incredible quarterback football player. They interviewed Wayne Gretzky, the greatest hockey player of all time, all talking about Tiger and their similar mindsets. So this isn't just Tigers. This is the dominator mindset. 99% perspiration. It begins, all the dominators agree, with good old-fashioned hard work. There's no magic pill, no such thing as effortless grace. At this level, talent is a given. But Tiger works harder than anyone out there, and that's why he's kicking butt, says tennis great Martina Navratilova, winner of 167 women's titles, including a record 9 Wimbledons. Every great shot you hit, you've already hit a bunch of times in practice. The vast majority of athletes have a much lower tolerance for preparation. It's not the pain, it's simpler than that. Listen to this. It's not the pain, it's simpler than that. Practice can be boring, says Joe Montana, who led the San Francisco 49ers to 4 Super Bowl wins in the 80s. A lot of guys say, yeah, I watched 2 hours of game film last night, and that's enough. But they're not really studying what's going on. They may as well have been watching television. Tiger's habit of pounding golf ball after golf ball long into the twilight, often during tournament play, has already become part of his legend. This was 23 years ago. During his so-called slump earlier this year, Woods claimed to be working on something special for his new swing in the Masters. People rolled their eyes until he won the Masters. Montana, like Woods, understands that such preparation pays off biggest in critical situations, moments when a bout of nerves could disrupt even the most basic play. Dominators can be wondrously creative when they have to be, but they're also geniuses of simplicity. In his famous fourth quarter drive to beat the Super Bowl champion Bengals, Montana threw nothing but short passes. No big strike, no fireworks, and no mistakes. No matter who you are, no matter how good an athlete you are, we're creatures of habit. says Wayne Gretzky, hockey's leading scorer and 4-time Stanley Cup winner. The better your habits are, the better you'll be in pressure situations. I think I said that. I think I said that about 10 minutes ago when I said under pressure, you react reflexively. And so although these great people that you see have these unbelievable geniuses and creativity, what they really are greatest at the fundamentals, and they grind and they hit more golf balls than everybody else. They throw more passes. They watch more game film. They make more contacts in business. They talk to more people. They see more people. And that number one rule gave me the permission and the habit of I've got to become self-disciplined if I'm going to be a dominator. And these are habits and rituals and routines. Everybody on the PGA Tour could hit golf balls. There's nothing special about that. It's who hit the most, with the most intention, with the most focus. Tiger Woods did. And that's why Tiger Woods became Tiger Woods and everybody else became everybody else. So if you want to become aspirational level 4, these self-discipline mindsets and thoughts, in addition to the structural things I said earlier, are the keys. How good is this? By the way, thousands of times I've read Tiger's rules on domination. Number 2, let the other guy get nervous. Gretzky and Woods have one more critical thing in common, an almost creepy ability to keep their cool. Believe it or not, the bigger the game, the calmer I got, said Gretzky. The dominators let the other guys flinch, the other guys get nervous, and that becomes a weapon on their behalf. I was comfortable because other people were nervous, says Yankee great Reggie Jackson, Mr. October, a title he earned with a startling spring of playoff runs, including the 1977 World Series, in which he homered a record 5 times. Sooner or later, you're going to rush and you're going to make a mistake, and I'm not going to do that. That helps explain why Woods, playing in a gentlemanly sport where the rivals directly can't affect each other's play, has nonetheless become known for rattling his opponents. Being paired with Woods is akin to when the disciples tried to save their boat during a storm, only to be distracted by the sight of Jesus walking on water. You're not only aware of his superior skills, you're also dealing with a whole new set of variables, such as bigger galleries, oohs and ahs, et cetera, et cetera. So, listen, guys, what about you? Your peers in your industry? Anybody getting nervous? Anybody worrying about you? Anybody up staying late at night thinking how they're going to compete against you? Do you get people under pressure to crack and flinch, or are they not concerned about you at all? See, in business, not only did I want to have the hardest work ethic, but I wanted people to think, man, I got to be at my A game to beat this dude. I wanted the people around me that were on my team to want to rise up to the standard that I was setting at any given time. I want everybody else to get nervous and flinch, and under pressure, I was cool and calm. You remember this, self-discipline, one of the things that comes with it is a sense of emotional control. You don't get too high and you don't get too low. See, self-disciplined people maintain emotional control. That's what they're saying in number 2 here. And I've learned that skill. I used to get very up and very down. Well, listen, when you're very up, your disciplines crack, right? And when you're very down, it's very difficult to be disciplined. But when you can stay somewhere in the middle, up and down, maybe 20, 25%, it allows you to stay self-disciplined in those moments. Number 3, don't just dominate, intimidate. Yeah, Tiger has repeatedly said that intimidation isn't a part of his game, but that's once he's on the course. He's thinking about nothing but his own shot making. Sure, once he's on the course, but what about when he's getting dressed in the morning? I love this, by the way. It's no coincidence that Tiger often pulls out a blood red sweater on his Sunday charges, just as it wasn't by coincidence that Dale Earnhardt preferred dark sunglasses and drove a black and white stock car that looked like a 200-mile-an-hour pirate ship. Reggie Jackson during the 77 World Series was the last Yankee every day to take batting practice. Just before the Dodgers took the field, he claims he didn't care if they noticed, but you could tell he was watching. Before one game, Reggie crushed about 45 out of 60 balls over the fence. That night, he walked on 4 pitches in at first at bat and then hit 3 home runs. Bob Gibson, the ferocious pitcher from the St. Louis Cardinals, took intimidation a step further. He wouldn't even talk to guys on the other team, especially if they were hitters, says Gibson, who had a baffling 1.12 ERA. So here's what I'm saying here. Here's what this means. You have to have the mindset that you are not going to think like everybody else, that you're going to think differently. And I'm letting you way on the inside here of self-discipline. This is deep, 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 deep into it. But if you keep thinking like everybody else thinks, right, you're not going to be great. And I know this stuff isn't always pretty to hear, but I'm going to tell you right now, this is what winning is. These are the little subtle thoughts that when you're, hey, good to see you. But in your mind, you're like, they ain't getting to me. They don't know how to play it at this level. They don't know this game. These are all the things. You start doing all this stuff, plus what I said in the very beginning, eliminating the distractions, scheduling the right things. You got to be kidding me. Moving needle activities next, the big stuff, starting with simple practices that build self-confidence and build momentum. How about number 4? This is huge, guys. Have a sense of the historic. You hear that? Do you have a sense of the historic, that what you're doing is something great? I tell my family since they were little kids, say the Myletts are going to do something awesome. The Myletts are going to do something great. We're going to do something psycho as a family. We're going to do something incredible. In business, I tell my colleagues, we're going to do something so amazing. You guys aren't going to believe when we get there. We're doing something awesome. This is a team of destiny. This is a company of destiny. The Myletts, a family of destiny. You have a sense of the historic. This gives you a context to want to be self-disciplined. Does that make sense? Why be self-disciplined if it's never going to mean anything? That's the problem. One of the reasons we're not self-disciplined, it's never going to mean anything. Who cares? No one's going to notice. It's no big deal. What I do doesn't matter. It does matter. It's just your dadgum life. It's just the story of you. It's just your family name. It's just your reputation. It's just what they're going to talk about when you're gone, is doing something historic. So whether that means you're going to win a World Series or a Masters golf tournament or just be the one in your family and change your family forever, you got to have this sense that you're making history. Because, by the way, you're making some type of history. If you're a faith-based person, you know someday you're going to account for it. There's going to be a history of your life. And even if you're not, you got to believe somewhere along the road there's some record of your existence. So you're making history, so you might as well have a sense of it. And when you have a sense that that history is going to be great instead of average and ordinary, you begin to automatically become compelled to be self-disciplined. If you lack self-discipline, there's nothing compelling you to have it other than wanting it. But if you have a sense of the historic, that's totally different. So he says this: do you have to win the big ones to be a dominator? It's a subject of eternal debate amongst sports fans, but it shouldn't be. Tiger is the proof. He's at the head of a heavenly crew of athletes, not because he's won 5 of his past 6 tournaments, but because he's won 5 of his past 6 major tournaments. Every athlete says he wants to win major championships, but Tiger doesn't just want those moments of glory. Listen to this. He has an innate sense that he can't be a legend without them. In our lives, there's going to be a bunch of every single day meetings, every single day encounters with people, and they seem inconsequential. But when you have self-discipline in these meetings and in these encounters with people, in your relationships, in business, in the gym, whatever it might be, on an everyday basis, every once in a while, there's going to be a big one show up. And you're ready for it when it happens because it's your habit. It's because it's your discipline. But when you aren't day-to-day prepared, here's the truth in life. When you're doing something historic or when it's a big meeting, most times you won't know it until years later. But if you look back at your life right now, the person you're married to is probably a chance meeting, right? Or something you weren't even sure was going to be significant to me. The business you're in, the company you work for, probably you weren't even planning on working there or even being in that business. See, our dreams often show up in life in packages that we don't picture, that we didn't dream of. And so it's that day-to-day staying ready and being ready until the important meeting comes, the major appointment comes, the major relationship comes. I always say that you're one more meeting, one more decision, one more relationship, whatever it might be, one new emotion, one podcast away from changing your life. But the hook is you will never know when it's actually happening. Okay. You will not know when it's happening until it shows up. So you're not going to know when it's the big one. You'll only know after you've done it. Now, there are times in life you're like, this one really matters. You will not feel the pressure in this one really mattering when you've been great day to day and self-disciplined all the way along the way. You've heard great athletes say it's just another game. It's not just another game, but the great ones can perform just like it's another game, just like it's another meeting, just like it's another appointment. Whereas the average ordinary, the ones that fail, feel the pressure because they haven't been disciplined consistently throughout their life or their business or their fitness, and they blow the big one. And it's true in life. The difference between winning and losing is so small, it really is almost too scary to talk about. If I look back at my own life, the very few occasions and meetings that took the massive difference in my life, it is scary to think about had I not shown up and performed in that meeting, or I had not done the right thing on that first date. It's amazing, even in your own life, isn't it? And so that's why day-to-day being ready, day-to-day having self-discipline, day-to-day having these habits and the mindsets to go with them matter, because you never know when it's coming. And the fifth one, this is big. This is why a 52-year-old is this fired up today talking to you. You ready? Never, ever be satisfied. Never, ever be satisfied. Most athletes work the hardest when they're trying to reach the top. So do most business people. Once they can get to that $100,000, they worked hard. Once they get to that $1 million, they've worked as hard as they can work. The great ones work even harder after they get to the 100,000, harder after they get to the million, harder after they're famous, harder after they've got a big following, harder after they get that promotion. They work harder in their loving relationships after they've got the one that's the one. But most people work hardest to get them. And once they have them, they don't work as hard to keep them or to grow it. The great ones work even harder after they get what they want, who they want. Wouldn't you love to be in a relationship with somebody who works so hard to get you, and then once they got you, worked even harder the rest of your life to keep loving you? Wouldn't you love in business someone who had a goal to get to $1 million or $100,000, and when they got there, they worked even harder? But we all know in life that's not true for most people. But the great ones, the dominators, the goats, the self-disciplined people, they work even harder when they get there. So most athletes work the hardest when they're trying to reach the top, but Tiger has seemed only more committed to improving his game since leaving the competition in the dust. Woods won his first Masters by the largest margin in history in 1997, but he knew that he wouldn't reach Jack Nicklaus' mark of 6 green jackets without a jolt of his game. So he spent the next 18 months literally retooling his thunderous swing. And it goes on to give you more and more examples about that. Talks about Michael Jordan in here and compares him to Michael Jordan. But I want you to think about that in your own life, those of you listening to it. How hard did you work when you were totally broke? And now that you're not, do you have that same hunger and work ethic? How hard did you work to lose that first 20 pounds to get in pretty good shape? But are you working even harder now to get the ultimate health and vitality in your life? How hard did you work to get your spouse or your girlfriend or your boyfriend in your life? Are you working even harder now to love them more? Because that's what the dominators do. That's what self-discipline is. We're both free now, but you talk a lot about how important routine is to getting you to freedom, right? And so speak to routine a little bit, because we both agree about this. You say it in a more powerful way than I do. But for someone listening to this, talk about routine, because everyone wants to be free. One of the challenges, they act free before they are. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain amount of disciplines and routine and habits and rituals you got to have that could get you free at one point. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I'm gonna say honestly, man, I came to the realization one day, and again, love my biological father, much respect for the person that raised me. But I realized at some point when I looked at my family's history, I was like, some things I don't want. There's some things I want, but there's some things I don't want. And then I remember having to say one day to myself, like, yo, you are your father's child. Like, yo, even though he didn't raise you, even though in the beginning you guys had, whatever little stuff y'all need to get through, don't lie. You are lazy at times. You know what I'm saying? Like, you are super social and you rather talk than work. You know what I'm saying? I just had to grow up one day and just be real with myself and just say, the only way you're gonna be successful is you gotta discipline yourself. When you look at a horse, I'm talking about a thoroughbred, it still needs that, what is that thing called that they put on it? He needs that without, you can't, you gotta control him. He got a lot of juice, got a lot of energy, he can go for it, but you gotta hone that. And so I realized, like, yo, you'd sleep in, you'd play video game, don't lie to yourself. You are powerful, but you have some vices. And you have some vices that take you down a crazy road. Like, you are your father, you are your grandfather, you are your mother, you are your grandmother. Like, it's real. And so I started saying, okay, you got to discipline yourself. And this is for me, this ain't for everybody. I started getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was like, yo, you're gonna have to get up a little bit earlier because you didn't finish school. You didn't take care of your business. So you can't get up the same time another man who gets up, who handle his business. So you need to get up at 3 if you're gonna catch the greats. You got to get up at 3. You got to go to bed earlier. This is why I said I never drank or smoked, because the men in my life who did it were extremists. Had an uncle who died, cirrhosis of the liver. You know, I had other uncles who drank, and my father, bless his heart, but he was strung out on drugs for about 14 years. And I was just like, yo, you can see that they don't know how to do it casually. Like, they ain't social drinkers. Like, they ain't social on substance. They taking it to a whole nother level. And so for me, it was like, you gotta discipline yourself. You're not gonna die if you never know what alcohol tastes like. But if you taste it, you might have the same experience they had. So you just gotta discipline yourself. You know, I do vegan most of the time, you know what I'm saying? And I tell people all the time, I love fried chicken. I love macaroni and cheese. I love a lot of desserts. But in my family is diabetes. So it's like, yo, if you do what they do, then you're gonna get the results they got. So chicken is good, and macaroni and cheese, the way my grandma make it, is great. And yes, the pound cake is phenomenal. But if you want to be with Dee Dee for the next 30, 40 years, and you want to be able to walk, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to be on the cruise. I was just on the cruise, and a couple people, you know, was on the motor scooter, you know what I'm saying? People with the canes and the walkers. And I'm not mad at them. But I'm like, I don't want that. I want to be able to walk at 60, at 70. I want to be independent at 80 if I can be. So I'm going to have to make some sacrifices now for the long run. I would drink pop every day if I could. But
is everybody hearing this though? Like, I mean, listen, all of us that want to win, like you already said, like I got to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning if I'm going to catch the greats, because I started with some deficiency. Absolutely. Successful people are very self-aware. Like, they don't BS themselves, right? Like, I have laziness too. Absolutely. I love laying around. I love sleep, right? No, but before, I wouldn't have got to sleep here if I was just me. I had to get these rituals and habits and disciplines. And people think sometimes they listen to me and they're so intense, like these dudes are freaks. I'm not a freak.
No. I don't. But you know why they say that? Because it makes it easier for them to say, I can't do it if they freaks, then I can't do it.
That's their out. You're exactly right. And I'm not going to give you that out. Neither are you. Like, I'm lazy. I got to get up early. I got to get up because if I don't get up by I get up at 4:35, but if I don't get up by then, I will be in bed at 8 o'clock. I have to get up. I have to move my body. So I'm with you 100%.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know, this month is all about gratitude. And along with everyone we're thankful for, there's another person we usually don't think enough, and that's ourselves. We just get lost in the shuffle, don't we, so many times. Sometimes it's hard to remind ourselves that we're trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that is not always easy. And BetterHelp can help you with that. Therapy can remind us to slow down and just take some stock of how things are going in our life, how far we've come. Maybe it's some trauma we need to work from our past. Maybe it's just getting clarity and focus on where we want to go. But therapy's helpful for, you know, all kinds of things, learning positive coping skills, setting boundaries. I think it just empowers you to be the best you. BetterHelp's great because it's done entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you got to do is fill out a brief questionnaire. You get matched with a licensed therapist. If you don't click, you can switch it anytime you want. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/edshow today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/edshow. So hey guys, I've been talking about Element for a long time. You gotta get hydrated, you gotta get your electrolytes, and I do that with Element, as do just about everybody that I know that's doing these mixes in their drinks. And so it's great when you want to cool off. But what if you wanted to drink a hot drink? Right? Well, guess what? Element's got something for this season that I think is great. Element's got something called Chocolate Medley. Oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. It's only out when the temperature drops like it is right now. This limited time, Element has Chocolate Medley, which includes chocolate mint, chocolate chai, and chocolate raspberry. So it's also cool as members of our community here can receive a free Element sample pack with any order when they purchase through our custom URL. Element has a great offer for our listeners. Just go to drinklmnt.com/Mylett and get a free sample pack with any order. That's drinklmnt.com/Mylett. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition.
I have to make a confession. Before I watched the show, I didn't think cheer was a sport. I didn't. I'm looking at, you know, pom-poms and whatever I've seen in a movie before. And then I watched this. These are unbelievable athletes. Incredible. And the danger level of what you all do. So just quick education on cheer, but then we're going to get into like lessons on life and coaching and leading people in business too. But when did this change? Like, where have I been? All-star cheer is like this thing that sort of turned it, I guess, a little bit, right? But like, just if people haven't seen the show, explain to us how this is an absolutely very detailed sport.
Yeah, I mean, cheerleading has definitely changed it over the years, even from when I was, you know, a cheerleader myself. When I cheered in the late 80s, and around that time, late 80s, early 90s, all-star cheerleading came about. And that really changed the industry in its entirety. We did competitive cheerleading in high school, but it was on a much smaller level. And what happened with all-star cheerleading, we started seeing where these kids were trained from basically birth, or really like 3 years old, you could have an opportunity to compete. And so they created these opportunities for people to be coached by really great coaches. Because, in school, cheerleading, a lot of times you have your science teacher that's the sponsor, and it really is not there's no education behind it. So there's no coach that's qualified to really get you to the next level. For myself, I did gymnastics until I was able to do school cheerleading. So I think that's what a lot of people did. They had a gymnastics background if they were interested in it. But anyways, it provided this platform where kids could come in and like grow from a very young age. Just like with club baseball, you go and you start travel ball and you're playing at an elite level from an early age. And all-star cheerleading also, you compete many times throughout the year. So your experience is just every single year you're gaining more and more experience. So by the time you get to me at college, I saw from the time I started and, until now, just the evolution of this, and the talent was growing, and these kids were coming more and more experienced. And of course it made my job easier, but definitely all-star cheerleading changed everything about cheerleading, and hopefully cheer changed everybody's opinion of it, because it definitely, competitive cheerleading is not your pom-poms and your sideline, just trying to look cute.
It's mind-blowing, everybody. If you haven't seen the show, one, the discipline level, the athleticism, and frankly, the danger level of the precision of what they need to do. And then it comes down to about 2 minutes and 15 seconds for the whole deal. Is just compelling. The stories of the way it's done. It's so funny. I have to tell you, Monica, I'm a dude, right? The way I found out about your show is I'm golf, and you're playing with dudes like, hey, did you see the Laker game last night? You see this? You watch Ozark on Netflix, and then over and over, guys are like, have you seen Cheer on Netflix? I'm like, what the hell are you, Cheer? Like, and then they're like, bro, you need to see this. It's unbelievable. And you got to see this coach. And I'm like, finally, about 11 or 12 different men on golf courses told me this. I'm like, I got to see it. And then it's one of these things like, you're going to binge it. You can't, the stories of these precious kids that are there, and Monica, it's awesome. So I just want to acknowledge the show. It's so, so good. But so is this book. And
Thank
very
you.
rarely do you get someone who's won 14 national championships write a book and say, let me show you about my formula, my recipe for leadership. And again, this applies as an entrepreneur, for you one-on-one in your life, you as a parent. You're going to love this book. But I want to go to some of, like, that's the foundation. Chapter 1 is called Discipline as a Gift. And then you talk about something called, so here we go, guys. There's like, if you're driving in the car, you wish you could pull over. You call it compassionate discipline. And it's a perfect description of what I observed of you in your coaching style. So just talk about that a little bit for a minute, compassionate discipline, and why it's a gift.
Well, I think discipline is a good thing. And I think structure is a good thing, and expectations. And a lot of times, people come from all different backgrounds, and they don't really have those at home. And those are the things that really can take you to the next level. But also being empathetic and being able to relate and make them feel like you care about them. Because at the end of the day, people are going to go that extra mile when they feel appreciated and when they feel like you care. And so obviously I'm a mother. And so my perspective is, how would I want someone to treat my child? How would I want not only my child, but how would I want someone to speak to me? And so I try to discipline with a mutual respect. And I'm not a yeller. I think a lot of people think of being tough and discipline as yelling. And, we see the typical football, you're in your face. And I like passion too. And we can have those moments of passion. But I think the biggest part is there's a big learning curve when 18-year-olds go to college and they're off on their own for their first time. And they need the rules, and they need to be held accountable, but they also need some understanding and some love. And I think it's just a great combination for people to want to listen and want to do better. And, yelling doesn't do it. You have to have a combination of something else.
You do that really well. I want to go a little deeper on it because I'm just thinking about different moments in the show where even in the season one, one of the first shows where the girl's going to be at the top of what I call the pyramid, hurts herself. And you're like, we're going to have to take her out and put someone else in. And these situations happen in business all the time. Most people avoid confrontation in life, even in their marriage. They'll let it stack and stack and stack. You have this really interesting thing because you're firm and you're incredibly truthful, right? Very, very truthful. But yet you do it in a loving way. Do you ever step back and if you have an emotion, like you're upset with them, do you ever let it breathe a minute before you communicate? Do you have anything you do? Because that's, to me, maybe your great strength. And the other one we're going to come up with in a minute is what this loving, very candid feedback, though. Most people don't do either one of those things. Are you conscious of doing it that way?
I mean, yes, I think so, because I think if we, especially with coaching, if I am not direct, it can lead to confusion or expectations that are not real on their part. And I would want someone to be honest with me so that even if it makes me upset, I mean, I can deal with it and I can move forward. If I'm constantly in a state of, well, maybe I have a chance at this, or maybe that's unfair, I think, to them. If you give them direct feedback and expectations, then it gives them very specific goals to work for and know what they need to do. If they, don't make Matt, what do I need to do to make Matt? Well, to be honest, this is where you're at. And I don't know. I just would want someone to be honest with me and not let me sit there, thinking that I have a chance at doing something when the reality is if I don't have this specific skill or, if I'm not working on this particular thing, I'm not going to be able to get that spot. Also, it gives them a goal, like I said, to work for. If they know that, oh, this is the one thing I'm missing, let me go and put some time into that and work on it. But like I said, I really honestly have always come from a place of I want to have respectful conversations and speak to them in a way I would want to be spoken to, which is why I'm not a yeller. I don't want to feel like someone is being condescending or embarrassing me. I don't think embarrassing anyone. And of course it happens at times because sometimes we're in a moment and, you're going to be really direct at that moment. But for the most part, I think pulling people to the side and having these open, honest, direct conversations in a very loving way is that's what's worked for me. And yes, sometimes I do need to take a moment. I don't know if you've seen season 2, but I'm like, I need to walk outside because I don't have a good attitude right now. And it's going to probably spill over in, how I start coaching in a minute. So I'm just going to go and fix myself. But I think that, I feel like I earn their respect. And to me, honestly, the biggest thing of leadership, whether you're leading your family, your children, or whatever, is they have to respect you. And so I really work on myself a lot so that I'm earning that respect.
It's interesting. You use that word a lot. Use it with them. I was just thinking, I do these interviews. I get to share them with everybody, but a lot of times they're for me, and I reflect on myself when I was early in my business career, before I had kids, because you're intense. Just so you guys know, this is an intense woman. You don't win 14 national championships if you're not one crazy person, intense-wise. She's a crazy person, just so you know. By the way, I think crazy is good. I love crazy people. Weird, rich, and successful, normal, poor, and unsuccessful. So I like that you're crazy. I'm crazy. But before I had kids, I think I had disrespectful conversations sometimes with people. And something about having babies, I would never want someone to speak to my son or my daughter that way. So you use that word respect a lot, both how you treat these young people and yourself. And a lot of times as a leader, when you've won a bunch of titles and you're the coach and they're a kid, it'd be easy to have a disrespectful tone. And as a business owner or an entrepreneur, same thing in business. I own this place. You work for me. It can come across as disrespectful. So I want to really highlight that part of it. And it's something that she does incredibly well. And it's how you galvanize a group. The second thing I think you're incredible at is instilling belief in people and getting each of them to believe in themselves and getting them to believe as a collective team as well. Is that something you think about consciously and you're always sort of embeddedly commanding belief into people?
I think so, for sure. I think I'm careful with my words, and it comes with that championship culture. You have to have everybody buy in, not only to the program, but to themselves as well, because they are at such an elite level. If they start doubting themselves, it'll affect their performance. But, I think our culture, I worked really hard in having that culture, and the athletes have always bought in, and it makes my job a little bit easier because they are holding each other accountable on that as well. But I definitely choose my words wisely, and when there are in situations where we're going through something difficult or we're struggling or whatever, I have to keep in mind that I'm the one they're looking to know, like, if we're in a storm, we're going to get out of the storm. If we're having a tough day at practice, it's okay, because tomorrow's a new day and we're going to hit that pyramid or whatever. I mean, we go through, just struggling in practice or bigger things that are happening within the team or with different people. So I always know that I have to be that support and that calm within the storm. And so I do choose my words wisely, and I try to always keep it in a positive, like, we're going to overcome this. I mean, you saw in season 1 when Austin got hurt on the band shell. That's never happened before. In my mind, I was terrified. I thought, I don't know how we're going to overcome this. But I knew that everyone's looking at me. And I was like, oh, we've got this. Y'all did amazing. Like all these positive things, that I'm trying to, it's not that big a deal. We have this. We've practiced this over and over. That's not what I was thinking in my head. I was going through some stuff.
No, that's one big thing as a leader, is not showing hurt and showing, I call it equanimity, calm under duress and pressure, right? And it's just, these are things you hear all the time. And you go, yeah, I know, but do you really do them if you're listening to this? Think about your family for a second. Your family has a culture. Are you conscious of it? Because a lot of times you bring the culture from the family you grew up in into your new family unconsciously.
Yep.
Little things like if you weren't hugged a lot when you were a kid, maybe you don't hug your kids as much. There's a cultural thing. How do you build a culture, by the way? I know that's a broad question, but is that something you start out, you go, I'm going to build something here special? Is it one of these things where you want people to feel special that they're at Navarro College? You put on our uniform, there's something special about being here. Do you think about those things, or is it just like the culture just becomes a reflection of the coach?
I think it just becomes a reflection, because I was very young when I started. I mean, I had zero experience.
You were basically right out of college, right? For everybody's understanding.
Yes. Yeah. And I had no intention of coaching ever. I have a business degree in finance. And I honestly, my ultimate goal was to move to New York City and work on Wall Street. I thought, for some reason, I thought that was the ultimate goal that I should look towards. And, but I graduated college early. So I was 21 when I graduated, and, moved to Dallas. I married my high school sweetheart. We moved to Dallas for a year, and I was working at a computer company that I really it was just the first job offered to me to pay the bills, to, to figure out what we were going to do. And a friend of mine was the baseball coach at Navarro, and he called me one day and he was like, hey, our cheerleading coach is leaving. You should come and apply for this job. And I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, it was I grew up there. So I was like, I guess I could do that. I really don't like what I'm doing right now, and it'll be a good stepping stone. Give me some time to figure out what I want to do. Wow. So I applied for the job, no coaching experience at all. Like I said, I'd only been out of college for a year, and got the job. And so I basically learned everything from trial and error and just studying my butt off, because I got there and there were only 14 people on the team when I got there. And so, of course, they'd never won. They weren't not good. They were decent, but they were not, nobody knew who we were by any means. And so I'm very competitive. And I was like, I want to build this program up. Like, even if I'm here for a year or two, like, I want to be the best, because that's just, if I'm, playing a card game, I want to win every single time. That's just who I am. I'm competitive, and I want to be the best at whatever I'm doing. So I started, trying to learn and figure out how to do that. And I really just took everything that I learned in business, because I thought, well, to earn the ultimate respect, I need to win a national championship. That's what I need to do. And how am I going to do that? We have 14 people on the team. So I just started, I thought, actually, this is what I did. I was like, how do I win a national championship? Well, I get the most points. How do I get the most points? Well, let me look at a score sheet. I need to maximize my points in all of these categories. How do I do that? Okay, well, this means we're going to need to get really good in all these categories. So I kind of started, from the goal and worked backwards and tried to, recruit people. And at that time, it was not, I literally was going into the weight room. I see a big guy and I'm like, hey, would you be interested in coming and letting us teach you how to throw some girls? Yeah, because, cheerleading, the talent pool wasn't as big because like I said, it was right at the start of all-star cheerleading. There weren't a lot of guys. A lot of the guys that were involved, really, they got involved because their girlfriends were a cheerleader. They played football. They were like, they started throwing some people around and realized how, it's kind of like addicting to what else can I do? And so, early on, there just weren't a lot of males, out there to recruit. So we're just recruiting and really teaching the guys that, I did actually have some boyfriends of the girls that we taught and pulled into the team. So just started there and, built, I didn't know. So like I said, I didn't go in and go, I'm going to build this championship culture. I was really just like, wait, what? I want to win. So let me start there. And then it just started kind of coming together. But I always knew what kind of person I am. And I thought the most important thing, like I said from the beginning, was I need their respect and I need to make sure that I'm working on myself to earn that. And I want to make sure I'm living my life by leading by an example and doing what I expect of them. So I really tried to make sure that in my own personal life, I was, being a good person. And, if I expect you to do this, I'm going to do it times 1,000. I'm going to show you how to do it through my actions. And so because of that, the buy-in was pretty quick. These kids were buying in because they were like, they wanted to make me proud. I've heard that so many times. Yeah. And so I really think that was how we started building this. I was doing my job by being a good leader and by being a good example. And they wanted to follow that example.
Yeah, I think you said so much there. The first thing that you said was about being competitive. Every single person that I've ever been around, they have a crazy competitive streak. It's this invisible thing. They're psychos. They're just different. They want to beat you at everything they do. And this is a telling lesson for you guys that are building a team, because she has a whole chapter in the book on recruiting. And I think one of the things you should look for is competitive people. The second thing that she said there that I want to make sure we unpack, because I think great leaders are sort of aspirational people, meaning they want to live a certain way themselves. They aspire to be a certain way. And then when you're in their presence, whether it's a Tom Brady or a John Wooden or yourself or any great leader, you want to make them proud because you respect them. If you start connecting the dots of Monica's mindset, because a lot of times people just do things unconsciously very well. But I like to unpack them. There's this respect thing both ways, which is then aspirational. And then if you get someone competitive, they want to make you more proud than other people are making you proud. And now you've got this thing you can't really describe, but it wins. Yeah. And it builds a culture. The chapter of the book, by the way, the title of the book, rather, everybody, is Discipline is Destiny, the Power of Self-Control. You just got to get it. It's loaded. So this is a goofy question, but I want to finish with it. What actually is discipline? What is discipline to you?
As I'm doing this series on the 4 virtues, I define courage as the willingness to put your ass on the line for what you believe in. I say discipline is the willingness to keep your ass in line, right? Okay. This is what I know I need to do. I'm going to do it. Wisdom is knowing what to do, right? Discipline is the willpower, the strength, the self-control, the self-mastery to do it. Seneca says, he is most powerful who is under his own power. Yeah. That's what it is. It's not, hey, do I have control over other people? A lot of people have that, but do you have control over yourself? That's what discipline is.
I love it. He says in the very beginning of the book that in order to master anything, you must first master yourself. And I believe that so strongly. And it sounds like you're creeping up on doing that, brother. I think you're doing that. And you helped me today. I know you helped millions of other people too. My routine is mainly morning focused. I'll be candid. I think sort of like you. I'm an early riser. If I can get to win that first part of my day, I feel like there's a high probability I'm going to win the middle, right? And probably the end. Are there things you do as your day winds down that you think are worthy of sharing with everybody here?
So I'm going to rock the boat a little bit here on this one, but I think you might be on my side of the fence here. You know, if anybody really follows Ed, you see awesome memories with Bella. You see him inviting Bella and her friends. They're out on the boat. They're going to dinners. They're enjoying their favorite things. It's you and Max on the golf court. It's you and Christiana traveling together. So you believe that balance does exist. That would be my belief as I watch your behavior and as I love how you show up every day.
Thank you.
That's a great example for me, and it's something I've always believed. I actually have a bookend to my days. I don't have meetings at 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night. Because if I do that and I never turn it off, my family doesn't get my time. There is no balance in my life. And I believe that you will not perform at your highest level. I think the world has been conditioned. I'm going to grind 36 hours a day and I'm just going to grind. I understand where that comes from, but I would offer this as an example or something, an opportunity, I should say. Try actually giving your family your unconditioned love and mindset. Now, given my mind might wander, there's something, we got a big game coming up or I'm working on, there's a big talk or something. So sometimes my mind will wander and I'll take a note. I'm not perfect here. Yeah. But I do my best to have a bookend. And so when I'm home, because I travel as much as I do, my day's over at 5:30, no later. And I've done that for years. Now, in the event there's something that does come up, it's this every now and again. But it's become a standard for me. I love to cook for the family. And it actually, for me, it slows me down. So at 5:30, if I start cooking, I'm relaxing. What does everybody want to eat? We enjoy a meal around the table together. That makes us better. Yeah. And so I get up early so that I don't have to work until 7 or 8 at night. So greatness takes sacrifice. You have to sacrifice something if you want balance. The easy way is to follow the lead. And I'm going to be a little bit direct here because I care that much about the people listening. People easily follow the lead of the person who has no discipline and has no balance because that's easier. Hey, I'll work out when I work out. Because they're not disciplined in their own lives. Wow. Yet if you want to be disciplined and have others lead and be the example, you have got to make sacrifice somewhere. Wow. So for me, all the way back to when I was a financial advisor years ago, I had clients, Ed, I'm talking clients making $1 million a year. And I used to meet people at the cigar club at the Ritz. And they would literally joke with me. I'm talking about people, they were huge clients. And they'd say, Ben, it's 5:15. I know you're leaving. You're about to get the bill. That's awesome. And so they would make fun of me, Ed, but they actually respected it.
They respected it.
They knew they're like, this guy literally is going home at 5:30. I could talk to him about something else for business, but he promised his family he was going to be home. Yeah. And so I believe if you want balance, you have to build balance and believe that you can have it. I know it's a long-winded answer, but
it's powerful because one, Ben is up so early and trains so regimented that I think it's wonderful that you share your recuperation time, that you're not a robot. It took me years to start to read. People say, I think you're Superman or a robot. You're not even human. And I'm like, no. Like, I like Cheetos too, and I like TV and I take time off. So I love that you share that, number one. But number two, again, people will listen and go, oh, well, hey, Ben Newman said I'm done at 5:30. So I'm done at 5:30. That's not what he said. What he actually said was he gets up extra early, makes that sacrifice where his day begins so much earlier than most people, get so much done by 6 a.m. that he can have that for his family. He's eating it for his family at 4 o'clock in the morning. He's getting up or whatever time he gets up that day so that he can have this. And so it's a trade-off. I love how granular and detailed we're getting because it's one of the things that most people wouldn't know about you or me is that I do recuperate. I do rest. I show up present because of it. We're all human. And if we're just depleting ourselves all the time, we're not effective and eventually we'll burn out. Me and Ben been at this a long time, right? And one of the things longevity demands is some form of recuperation and a separation from the grind, so to speak. That's how you do stuff 30 years. You can't do stuff 30, 20 years if you don't do that.
I actually wake up at 2:24. And so the next level of everybody's success is a math problem. So this is the only reason why I'm stopping on this point.
Yeah.
Look at the difference between 4 and 2:24. And I'm not condoning for anybody to do that. The reason why I get up that early is because that's how long my morning routine takes for me to wake up that early and to be done at 6 a.m. because that's when the kids wake up, for me to be present, to get them ready for school, take them to school, watch TV, make them breakfast, because I want to have that family time. So that's why I wake up that early. Yeah. But the difference of, we'll just call it 2:30 to 4, is 90 minutes.
Yep. Every
30 minutes, because everybody makes the excuse, I don't have time. And what I've learned is time and sacrifice, when I take them back, I win more. And so every 30 minutes times 5 days in a week is 2.5 hours, 4 weeks in a month is 10 hours. 10 hours is a work day, times 12 months in a year is an extra 12 days. So by waking up 30 minutes earlier, you get an extra 12 days a year. Me waking up, the difference between 4 and 2:30 is an extra 36 days. Most people work 18 to 20 days. So I'm working 14 months when most people are working 12 months.
By the way, a key to, hey, I'd like to get up earlier, is I recommend that you start in 15-minute increments weekly.
You nailed it.
Right. So if you're a 6:30 waker, get up at 6:15 for a week, then get up at 6, then get up, and you'll find that it's much easier than going, we've all done that. I'm a 6:30, I'm getting up at 4 now. And you're just gassed by 2 o'clock every day, and then you can't do it. So it's breaking it down over time. So let me ask you about this person listening right now, because you guys, now you're getting why I wanted Ben on and why I want you to have his book, because we can go in so many different directions. But I'm listening today, I'm driving in my car, I'm on the treadmill, I'm watching it on YouTube. And I'm at a stage in my life where, you know what, you guys both have me really inspired right now. And I'm willing to make some sacrifices, but I'm in a slump, and or I'm a little bit just as at a loss. Like relationship just ended, or a business I had's not so good, or, the last 18 months has sort of just hit me really, really hard. And I'd like to start again today. I know. And by the way, everybody, you can just start again today. I don't care if you've started 1,100 different other times, you can start again. Right? You have my permission and Ben's permission. Start again. I don't care if you started again January 1st, you started again last summer, start again. But if I'm starting again, where do I do, Ben?
Well, if you're starting again, you have to start. Let's take 75 hard as an example, right? A lot of people, they think, oh, well, I tried it and I failed. You really only failed if you don't try again. Right? If you just say, oh, I tried it, I'm never going to, and I'm not saying everybody has to do 75 hard, but my point is that's what happens. People try something once and they never try again. Yeah. The failure of not trying again is actually worse than maybe the beer that you decided to drink with your friends and then you couldn't check the box and you missed 75 hard.
Yes.
And so to me, I think you bring up a great point. You have to have a willingness to start again. And so we actually, in the book, and I've been sharing this for 15 years, I call it a prize fighter day, and it breaks down what are the things that you need to do personally, professionally, and in your service to others every day. And when you do those things, you win. And we all know what those things are, but we choose to not do them. So if you're in a season of life where it's been challenging, to Ed's point, just like he believed in me and shared that, and now I put it in front of me every day, he just spoke that into you. Stop where you are and let's build right now for you. Stop. What do you need to do personally, professionally, and of service? I need to eat right and I need to break a sweat, get a workout in. You don't have to train like Ed, but break a sweat. Number 2, you may say in sales, when I perform at my highest level, I call them points of contact rather than phone calls, text message, email, phone call. I got to make 20 points of contact. That's when I know I'm giving my best. Okay. That's your business. The service, which John Wooden used to say, can't have a great day until you've done something for somebody else with no expectation of anything in return. Do something for somebody else. So you mean to tell me that you can't wake up tomorrow, get a workout in, eat right, make the phone calls, text messages that you're supposed to make that's going to make you successful, and do something good for somebody? And so I think people have been conditioned in the world that when you fail, at least I tried. I think by not starting again, that's way worse than the falling short that you already experienced. Believe in yourself and go back to the attack, because everything you need is already in you. God's given it to you, but you got to choose to take it. And sometimes he puts you through pain and failure and challenge because he recognizes you need to find your greatest strength.
Oh my gosh, Ben. That's one of those replay it right there. everybody rewind and listen to what he just said again. You said something about God there, which is amazing, because as you were talking, I had this calling on my heart because you said about this book that you and I both love earlier. And I'm just curious for you, how important faith has been in your life. And then also, is that a common trait in most of the leaders you know, that they have some faith, whatever that faith is, and that, perhaps they're willing even to proclaim it? I'm just curious if that was some of the things uncommon leaders have.
Well, so here's what's actually pretty interesting. The book releases, and all of a sudden it shoots right to the top. It's the #1 Christian leadership book, and it's actually maintained #1 Christian leadership book. That's awesome. Since the book came out a week ago, it stays there. And the publisher didn't even select that as a category for the book. Yet there
awesome. Amen.
There are 3 chapters in the book that strongly reference the beliefs from a Christian-based platform that some of the leaders have. One of which is our dear friend, John Gordon. Yeah. John has actually mentored me since 2008. He led me to Christ. We're both born Jewish individuals that accepted Christ later on in life. So we're Jews for Jesus. That's why you like me, because I'm duly protected. You know you'll be all right. And so there's this strong faith-based message, but yes, many leaders have it. It's not a prerequisite for leadership, but you do find that it's very common. And those strong leaders, even a Dabo Sweeney, right? Who it's fun for John and I, because he's worked with Dabo for 10 years. I worked with Coach Saban for 4 years. Now we go head to head. But Dabo doesn't hide his faith. You know, a lot of leaders, they're comfortable that you don't have to agree with me, but I'm going to help you understand where I stand in life. And in the book, it definitely, it's there. And there's a prayer that John shared with me at the end of his chapter. You got to let people know where you stand. They don't have to agree with you, but as a leader, don't be fearful of letting people know where you stand.
Oh my gosh. I believe that so strongly. And I'm so glad you said it the way you said it. And of course, you know that John's become a dear friend of mine. And I obviously, guys, what I feel like is if you do have faith, that it will help explain to people your moral and some of your standards that you live by. And at the same time, it's a way of defining who you are and what you believe in and what you stand for. There is a way to say, hey, this is what I believe in, and not say it in a judgmental or preachy way. I'd like to think that I sort of nuance that relatively well, that people know where I stand, yet I love everybody, believe in everybody, but I think you kind of know where I stand on stuff. And so I just want to encourage everybody. That's why I asked Ben the question.
How often when you speak, and look, when you and I go to speak oftentimes, right? As much as we'd like to say, this is where I stand, sometimes it's in our contracts, no politics, no religion.
Yes.
How many times do people still come up to you and say, are you a man of faith, Ed?
All the time. I would say almost every single time.
And that's to your point that you just expressed, is that you believe it in such a way that you show up with this conviction. You don't have to say, I'm blessed. You don't have to read a Bible verse. People know it's in your heart.
They know it's in my heart. And the other thing I want to share with everyone listening to this, if I'm an example of one thing, it's that God uses flawed people. And I think Ben would raise his hand and say this as well, that I think you all need to know that I make mistakes every day. So does Ben. I'm a sinner saved by the grace of God, by the way, everybody. And I just want you to not think that because you're not perfect that you can't win. Because you make mistakes, you can't win. I think oftentimes people think this mistake, this decision, this judgment, this thought I have disqualifies me from being successful. I'm going to be punished with failure because I'm human. Nothing could be further from the truth. You're not going to be punished with failure because you're a human being who makes mistakes. But having a faith that allows you to reflect and maybe even repent to some extent or grow in it is a wonderful experience to have when you do make those mistakes, is what I would say to everybody.
One of the things I told Tim before the interview, this Relentless and his Relentless program as well, I was telling him before the interview on this topic we just were, there's so many of you that have children that are at that teenage years and they're thinking about their sport or college or the rest of their life. I so strongly believe the sooner in life someone begins to learn to think like this, the easier it is to develop those habits. And so at the end when we promote this, or even Tim's book and his program, really encourage you to get your children at the right age involved in this and learn
learning to think like this earlier in life. Their lives will be so much better earlier if they learn to think this way as opposed to the way the world's teaching them to think right now. So I want to make sure that I've told you that. In just a few minutes, we're going to tell you how you can get access to his program
I keep saying it, but we're getting too soft. Everyone talks about, nobody moves anymore. We're getting unhealthy. Listen, we have access to some of the healthiest foods, all the diets out there, all the knowledge. There's more gyms opening now than ever before, and why is the obesity rate going up? You have the knowledge. Hey, if I eat this, this is what's going to happen. If I eat this, this is not going to. But people want to make excuses. I got a slow metabolism rate. I'm big boned and all that. No, you're eating too much. All right, let's stop making excuses. All right, there are people out there that do have those conditions.
Sure.
Okay, we overcomplicate things. Move more, eat less equals weight loss.
There you go. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure most people's bones aren't much bigger than other people's bones.
They're not. That's just that. Yeah, they're
you know
not.
what I mean?
Yeah.
That's one of these people say that's completely nonsensical.
Yeah.
Your bones are not bigger than my bones.
Yeah, but it's an excuse. They've heard that. They've heard that somewhere. Yeah, I can't lose the weight because of that. It's the same thing. When you're competing at something, it's not. Why was Michael and Kobe who they were? Tom Brady, Dwayne Wade, Wayne Gretzky, Muhammad Ali, Floyd Mayweather, all these guys. Not because of their physical gifts. Yes, that had a lot to do with it. It's up in here.
Yeah.
It's up in here, and we can all listen. We're not going to learn to fight like Floyd. We're not going to learn to play basketball like Michael. We're not going to be able to do these things, but you can all think that way in whatever you're doing. You can all take that action. You can be that cleaner in whatever you want to do. It starts and ends up here. Yeah. All right, it's time to recharge this and reboot this.
Is there a difference at all? I'm just curious because you work with both of them. Just a sports thing. You indulge me. What is the difference between Kobe and Jordan? Was there a difference in the two? Because there's tons of similarities. Is there a difference in the two?
I always say this. Kobe worked out harder. Michael worked out smarter.
Is that right?
Yes. They both were extremely hard, but Michael was always smart. Kobe was, it was this constant push, and we had to even when you reeled him in, okay, you get a call at 3 a.m. in the morning. He said, "What are you doing?" It's 3 a.m. I'm sleeping. That's what you should be doing.
Right.
Let's go back to the gym.
Really?
All right. And I'm like, no, it's really not a good idea. Well, here's the thing. Even if I tell him it's not a good idea, I still got to go to the gym because he's going to show up at the gym.
No kidding.
Yeah. He's going to show up at the gym.
Were they the two hardest workers?
Yes. Your most successful individuals. It doesn't happen by accident.
Right.
It doesn't. Listen. There's a lot of talented people that succeed at nothing, at absolutely nothing. Now, when you have that individual that's talented, you have that individual that knows how to work hard, all right, and they have the intelligence, okay, and this is key. This is key because this is what's missing now with individuals. All right, you have the talent, you have the intelligence, all right. You know how to compete. You don't have the resiliency. You don't have that. When failure comes kicking your ass, all right, you crumble and you fold. All right, you crumble. You gotta have that resiliency over and over again. But at some point, that resiliency has got to turn into something. All right, people talk about all the time, oh, you build so much character from losing and, from failure and all that. Listen, at this point in my life, I got enough fucking character.
I've had enough losing. Yeah, me too.
I got enough character. All right.
I've learned more from my wins. I just don't even think it's true.
You always learn more from your wins. You always learn more from your wins. You're cool. See, here's the thing. You cannot say this. All right, a cleaner never calls himself a cleaner. And you know why a cleaner never calls himself a cleaner? Because he's never satisfied. Another individual can call themselves a cleaner. That statement you just made tells me right now, and don't let this go, you are a cleaner. You'll never admit it. Your wife will never admit it. Okay, but somebody else can say, when they see that, he's a cleaner.
Oh, I appreciate
but
that.
you're never going to be you're never going to be satisfied.
It honestly doesn't feel like it, right? It just honestly doesn't.
And it never will. It never will, because guess what? When it does, you're no longer a cleaner. You're a closer.
Right, you move backwards, right?
You move backwards.
You're not willing to go through the next wall.
Right.
Yeah.
And it happens. You get a lot of individuals that make that stage. They go from closers to cleaners, and it's too intense.
Yeah.
It's
I watch it all the time, man.
It's too intense, and you see them. You see them go back.
You do.
You see it go back. Like, listen, you're built a certain way. Mm-hmm. Okay, you work out to have this physique. I work out to look this way.
Yep.
Okay, your wife, everybody else does. What happens if you stop?
We know.
It goes.
You got it.
Your body goes back. You don't have those arms. You don't have those shoulders. You don't have those guns. You don't no longer have that waist.
Yep.
Your body wants to always convert back to being comfortable.
So true, man.
Okay.
So true.
And we say this all the time. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Being uncomfortable. You said something in the book. We'll go through a couple bullet points because you said something about the hard work. Let me just read something to you said here, because I just really believe all of this. But you said he knew his skills were so finely tuned that he could dominate any situation. You're talking about Jordan. He worked so hard and long that his body and his mind, this is the word, reflexively knew what to do at all times with Michael. Everything became automatic. He repeated those same movements over and over until he didn't have to think about anything. He only had to let those instincts take over. So what I see in like professional business people is the more they've repeated these, whether it's their phone call or their script or their close over and over, when pressure hits, they can act reflexively, right? And their instincts take over.
Yes.
And your average person has not put in that background work, and so when pressure hits, they flinch, they miss, they stutter, they stammer. It's not reflexive to them, right?
Correct.
So one of the big differences is their ability to get to it's an automatic reflexive process through the work, right?
Yes, you know what? Your greatest athletes, all right, your greatest business people, all right, your most successful individuals, and whatever they do, I'm talking about teachers or whatever, okay? You know what to them thinking is? Thinking's a distraction. Wow. Thinking is a distraction. They're so finely tuned. Everything is no longer a reaction, it's a reflex, all right? So when they're actually thinking about something, they're actually not on their game.
You're right. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're not on their game.
Yeah.
If you have to think about this movement, you got to think about this. You got to think about what you do. No, when something happens, it's like. But in order to get that state, you know how many years and years of preparation it takes not to be able to think. And you hear this about all the time in athletes or kids. Just go up to the plate. Don't think. Just swing the bat. Right. Okay. Just shoot the ball. Yeah. No, it doesn't work like that. That's years.
That only
and
works if you've
years.
had the 25,000 hours of the work in,
exactly.
Right? For those of you that getting into a business or you're in a business, you're already good. You can't work enough. You can't get so good at your craft. The more and more reps you do, the more reflexive something becomes under pressure, and the more you train people over and over and over again, so that when they're under pressure, they react reflexively too. That's how you build a team, right?
Yeah, it's just like, all right, I'm gonna give a little example here. I don't know how long we've been going for. Everyone's driven in a car. You got a passenger next. Passenger next to you. So let's say you're driving. Okay. And you have a family member sitting next to you. All right. And all of a sudden you hit the brakes. What's the first thing you do? You reach over and protect the person next to you.
Yeah.
You don't think about it. Well,
Yep.
That's what cleaners do.
That's cleaner.
Okay.
In business and in anything they do.
Exactly. What's a closer's going to do? A closer's going to hit the brake, and then he's going to look over to the person. Are you okay?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
They already know they're going to be okay. I got to make sure everybody else is okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
I got to take care of that person.
How good was that?
A couple other questions I want to say before we even move off the first darn chapter is you said in the book, this book at its core, I'm quoting from it, is about taking things that are broken, systems, situations, people, culture, like what we saw in 2020, systematic things in our world, and you say, and working towards making them whole. Sometimes brokenness is on the outside, cities, countries, and communities in which we live, work, and play. Other times that brokenness is within. And until we address the things that break our hearts, the things that bring us pain, we won't be able to do what we were put on this earth to do. And you ask, what breaks your heart? And then you go into some other questions. That's not normal in a dream book. Why do you have that in there?
because this is not a dream book. This is a overcoming book, overcoming the obstacles on the outside, but also overcoming ourselves.
Yeah.
Before you make any kind of change, we could use that word, you could say progress, whatever word you want to use, you need to address the insecurities within you and the brokenness within you. And sometimes that brokenness came from people close to you. Maybe it's family members. Maybe it's like a dad who was present or wasn't present. Maybe it was a mom who was there, maybe wasn't there. Maybe it was siblings. Like maybe it was something that happened as a child, and all of a sudden, like your worth that God gave you, that inherent worth, like, you know, like I remember like when, you know, Jesus gets baptized, like heavens open up. This is my son in whom I'm well pleased. There's another verse in Matthew 18 or so where they're giving an example about paying taxes and all the things, and they're asking Jesus like, oh, should we pay? Should we not? And he's like, essentially, he's like, man, the sons are free. Like, y'all are good, but we're still going to pay. But it's like, I'm God's child. I have inherent worth and value. And somewhere down the line, I set that aside and I started to believe a lie. The lie that either I wasn't enough or wasn't good enough or wasn't smart enough or I was too much. And God said, nope, you are who I made you, but I need you to like set aside the lie and pick up the truth. And so this is not a dream. Oh, you know, dream big, all these dreams come true. No, this is that's why this book was hard for me to write. It was hard. Like it was hard. My first book, I'm not saying it was easy, but the words flowed out of my heart. This one was very challenging because I have to address some of the stuff inside of me. The subtitle, Following Your Fire to Heal a Broken World. Like I talk about, man, that God-given fire, sometimes it gets put out. How do we reignite that match? And so life is hard and dreams are real. And if we want to go and live out those dreams or even find them again, we have to go back to those places and address those broken pieces inside of us. There's a story, I don't remember the verse right now.
So good, bro.
I'm telling you, man, there's a story in the Bible about the potter. And it's like this dude, he's making this pottery and the potter like messes it up. And you think, oh no, I'm done. I'm screwed. This is horrible. And then it goes on to say, well, the potter, as he kind of slips, messes up the clay, he makes it into something different that was pleasing to him. So it's like, dude, I messed up. And it's like, no, dude, God still wants to, not even can or will, he wants to use you. And oh, by the way, it brings him great joy and delight.
I think he likes to use some of your things that you think disqualify you.
Bingo.
So, and you talk about this in the book, and I'll be honest with you, I'm reading the book going, man, because I'll give you a quick example, and then I'll let you talk about it. My dad was an alcoholic and got sober when I was 15 years old, stayed sober the rest of my life. So one of the reasons I believe so deeply humans can change their life, I watched my hero do it, right? And not too long ago, I woke up in the middle of the night. I had written my book about my dad and the power of one more. And I woke up crying. And my wife's known me since we were little kids. She goes, what's wrong? And I said, someone helped Daddy. And she went, what? And I said, someone helped my dad. I never thought about this before. Some precious human being helped my dad in the lowest moment of his life. He was either going to take his life or lose his family. I don't even know where it happened, a bar, an alley somewhere. Someone helped my dad get sober. And she goes, that's incredible. And I said, that person has no idea that they did something great with their life. The ripple effect is, I'm his son. I've reached millions of people. They probably have no idea. The more amazing thing is what qualified this person to help my dad. They were an alcoholic at one time. They were a drug addict. They were a liar. They lived in the shadows. God repurposed their mess and actually used the things they were the most ashamed of to change other people's lives and change their life. So oftentimes what we do, you're right, this worth gets stripped away, and then we start using our mistakes or our failures or our averageness even as like these disqualifiers from our future, when the reverse is actually true, right? Isn't that the case?
That is 100% the case. There's a point in my book, and I'm saying this because I just found this out. I talk about this lady, this older woman named Cindy, like 80, 70-year-old, 60-year-old woman, and how in the book, and this is like it's great, but I didn't know this until now. So I talk about, man, like she had a friend, and her friend, she a white woman, grew up in Houston, and like kind of like race and things, and different water fountains. And she had a friend who essentially like Cindy's like working on like learning more about race and George Floyd, and she has this friend, and this friend's like, oh, I don't like black people and this and that. Like it was like, she's like old school thinking. And Cindy stood up to her and said something, and I wrote in the book, and that's sometimes the cost of like change. And I was like, maybe Cindy lost a friend that day. I don't know if she did or didn't. Well, I sent her a copy of my book, and she read it, obviously. And I told her about that section, and she said, hey, Sam, thank you so much for writing this, but this story actually does have a happy ending, because my friend, after that conversation, we stayed in touch, and all of a sudden she's learning more about people who look different than her, who think differently. And now all of a sudden, because of me, like saying something and saying, hey, let's actually learn, now her story is changing. Who knows about her kids and her grandkids and her great grandkids. And so this idea of our mess, even I go back to my friend doing stuff on TV. Like I was hurt by hearing this guy who was my teammate say, man, why would you say that? But he confronted me, and I get a chance to go and I said I was going watching, did I say it or not? But even go and say, hey, let's talk about this, because I don't ever want to be that kind of person. I don't want that to be. And if it is, I'm sorry and I apologize. But it's almost this deal of places where we're afraid or we feel broken, God wants to use
so true
for his glory.
Well, you literally say, I'll let you finish this sentence. Everyone, I want you to hear this. This is going to go viral, this sentence right here, because no one phrases things this way. You are the answer to someone's
prayers.
Come on.
You are. You are. Your action, your movement, your discernment, your touch, your platform is what someone has been waiting for. And you have no idea.
Yes.
You have no idea. That dream that you have, that you've been a little bit like timid about and trepidation, there are people on the other side of those dreams.
Yeah.
Like your dad.
That's exactly the example I'm thinking of.
I'm telling you, man, like your dad he didn't want to be an alcoholic, but there was someone who said, you know what, I'm going to go talk to this guy.
That person was an answer literally to my prayers as his son. Literally. I'm reading your book and I was getting emotional. One, there's actionable things. At my age now, in my experience, I put things through my, do I believe that meter? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm 51. And everything I'm reading, I'm like, that's right. That's right. That's a way better way to say it. I've never heard that before. That person, and by the way, I know who they are now. Ironically, I can't say his last name because it's an anonymous program, but I'll just say something interesting. My name's Ed. My dad's name's Ed. My grandfather's name's Ed. And the person who helped my dad get sober, his name is Ed. That's not a very common name anymore, right? And so I actually know who this person was.